From the state capitol, the Capitol Report with Senator Dave Cox. And now, the Capitol Report.
Hello, I'm Senator Dave Cox, and welcome to the Capitol Report. October is National Crime Prevention Month, and today we have the great pleasure of having Sacramento Sheriff John McGuinness and Placer Sheriff Ed Bonner in our Capitol studios to talk about crime prevention, what you can do to protect yourself, protect your home, and protect your family. Gentlemen, thank you for being here today.
Our pleasure to be here.
Good to be here.
That's all right. We're glad to have you. Let's just start just with some of the fundamentals. And Sheriff Bonner, let me start with you. How'd you get your start in law enforcement?
Well, absolutely no background in the family or interest in myself. Actually, I ended up at UC Berkeley on a track scholarship. I decided I should do something. I better declare a major. And
so were you a half miler?
I was a quarter miler.
Quarter miler.
I know that you're a track guy too. And but I ended up there, and I thought, I think most of us when we're younger, I'm going to join the FBI or the Secret Service or something really glamorous. And then after 4 years in Berkeley, from 1969 to 73. Loomis, my hometown, was looking pretty darn good. So I went back and I tested with Sac County Sheriff's Office, Placer County Sheriff's Office, and Roseville Police Department, and I took the first job I was offered.
And so how long have you been then with Placer County Sheriff's?
33 and a half years.
33 and a half years.
Yeah.
How long as sheriff?
This is my 13th year.
13th
my fourth
year.
term, yeah.
Fourth term. And John, tell us about how you got started in your career.
My situation is a little bit different. From a very early age, I knew that this was something that appealed to me. I think there's some element of the kind of an adrenaline junkie, interest in all the things going on, being in the know. And also I like just the interpersonal, the people side of the business. And so it was very early on something I identified that I wanted to do, and I went and got a degree in criminal justice. And 28 years ago, came to work for the Sheriff's Department, and have never regretted a moment of it.
And you've been the sheriff for how long?
Just a little over a year, about a year and a half.
Just
Rookie.
Well, gentlemen, you have the two most populous counties in the first Senate district. There are about approximately 1,600,000, 1,700,000 as far as the population of Sacramento County?
Right, actually about 1,400,000.
Uh-huh.
And it's growing daily, and it's a very diverse county. In fact, some reports would suggest that Sacramento City itself, and of course the surrounding area, represent the most diverse community in the nation. We know that in our one local school district we have over 71 languages spoken. As I say, the community is growing very much. The demands and the needs for law enforcement and government services in general have probably never been more critical. All of this has to be done now, provided in an environment with shrinking resources. So,
and John, you've got a population of 1,400,000, and you got about 950 square miles,
right.
And it's a situation of where it's about 30 miles across and 30 miles deep in order to right. Traverse the county.
Right. And so much of the county, I mean, you think about the Sacramento Sheriff's Department and our jurisdiction, our area of responsibility. You have Arden Arcade and Carmichael, Fair Oaks, Orangevale, so much that is densely populated, but we also have a huge rural population, the far south county, about 460 square miles of completely undeveloped rural land.
Sheriff Bonner, Placer County is somewhere in the neighborhood of a little south of 400,000.
Yes.
But yet you have 1,500 square miles, and so you've got Roseville on the west, and you go all the way over to Lake Tahoe on the east. How do you handle that?
Well, it's a real challenge. I spent 13 years of my career up at Lake Tahoe, from sergeant to station commander, and I know that housing is a big issue, the affordability of housing up at the lake. And it's amazing to me because I think that when we talk about Placer County, we see this growing community next to Sacramento County, very connected politically and economically to Sacramento County, and yet we forget about the wilderness. We have an incredible expanse of wilderness, and you can drive a couple, it's a little bit outside Forest Hill, and you won't see another car, another person, and to fly over it is spectacular. So, but it is a challenge on trying to get people to staff those remote stations.
And how do you allocate those resources, of course?
Well, it's funny because we have to now basically staff for the busy time, because if you say take for example a hospital, if you don't have the patient census, you send those nurses home or something. We don't have that luxury. We basically have to staff for our summertime peak season throughout the fall and the spring, and so those resources are there, and whether you have that call for service drive or not, and quite frankly, the seasonal population, you're not going to get those ongoing. I mean, just call to call to call to call. Which I think that John's staff experiences and ours in South Placer will from time to time get.
And so you really have a lot of the same issues, but at the same time you have differences because you've got a different topography and that sort of thing. Let's talk about the crime that you see from a standpoint of prevention. Let's talk about prevention. Let's talk about the trends that you see. Sheriff Bonner, what kind of trends are you seeing in Placer County?
Well, I think anywhere methamphetamine is a curse. And it drives so much of what we see. It drives the thefts and burglaries. It drives identity theft, because they've got people out there who are stealing your identity, giving it to somebody else who takes advantage of it, and they either give you cash or they give you money for the methamphetamines. But we're seeing just that, and that is just, if there's a linchpin in our crime community, it's the methamphetamine right now.
John, is that true in Sacramento County?
Absolutely true. And also, methamphetamine is a unique drug. For years, we've experienced the trend, the phenomenon of people needing to feed a drug habit and doing so by victimizing others, stealing to support their habit, essentially. But the unique component to methamphetamine is that it causes bizarre, very paranoia-based violent behavior. In fact, there's countless incidents, examples of outrageous things done, bizarre and horrible life-ending crime that's done with no reason whatsoever. Most notably, the murder of CHP officer Andy Stevens, who was arrested, the suspect arrested by Placer County Sheriff's deputies, by the way. That there's no rhyme or reason. There's no good rationale as to why this guy did what he did. The young man who went into the restaurants in Elk Grove about a year and a half ago. Same kind of thing, methamphetamine abuse over a protracted period of time, and extraordinary violence committed against people who pose no threat to him whatsoever. So that's the real nuance to methamphetamine. I think that makes it far more dangerous than any other substance. Well,
let's talk about your departments for just a moment and talk about how many personnel in Sacramento County's Sheriff's Department.
2,300 total personnel, about 1,900 sworn total. And, of course, for budgetary reasons and other factors, we carry a relative number of vacancies at any given time. We're trying to close that gap in the sworn side of the House particularly because it's so critical to the mission. And we talk a little bit about prevention. For many, many years, it has been said that homicide is a crime you cannot prevent. We want to change that. We don't believe that to be the case, and we are actually expending resources predicting the likelihood of violent crime in a given geographical area and dispatching or deploying resources with that in mind. There's all kinds of crime prevention efforts typically used in property crimes. But I think we've had some very good successes in the last year. We actually have a high-impact team that's readily redeployable from one community to the next to address those predictable trends. And the good news is every crime category is down in the first 6 months of this year from the first 6 months of last year in Sacramento County. We hope to be able to maintain that.
I understand. Sheriff Bonner, let's talk for just a moment about the size of your organization. How many sworn people do you have? How large is your department?
I think it presents a great contrast to what Sheriff McGuinness is dealing with, because staffing is really call for service driven. We have 500 total employees. About 300 of those are sworn deputy sheriffs.
So about 60% are sworn.
But we also have, as John does too, we have cities within our county that provide police service. We have Roseville, Rockland, Lincoln, and Auburn have fine departments, and so we are really responsible for about half the county in a sense. But also as the coroner and the marshal, I have responsibilities within the city limits.
You also have your two contract cities, correct?
And we do have two contract cities.